Japanese battlefield and ninja arts. The International Bunjinkan was founded by Dr. Masaaki Hatsumi, the 34th generation Grandmaster of Tokakure, the oldest of these warrior traditions. Arizona Bunjinkan was founded over 35 years ago. And today, a longtime student, Jeffrey George, will introduce us to this beautiful art. Let's welcome Jeffrey and their organization.
Ohayou gozaimasu. The 9 Ryu of the Bujinkan have their origins over 1,000 years ago in the turbulent past. Survival skills were honed and perfected on many battlefields across almost 500 years of Japanese history. When a lasting peace finally arrived in the 1600s, our warrior arts were refined and organized into forms called katas, some of which you're going to see today. The main idea central to the study of the katas in the Bujinkan Taijutsu is the development of a natural power through the principle of whole body movement, Taijutsu. This principle of whole body movement is explored from the very beginning of training with the katas called sanshin. The first form is Kunokata. Through the sanshin movement, a student learns how to shift their weight from their legs to their arms to power their strikes. And you can see here a 3-fingered strike, san shi tong kin, 3-fingered strike. The next one is sui no kata. This open-handed strike from the outside is known as amote shudo. Now Kunokata. That open-handed strike is now inverted, coming from the inside, or ura shuto. The next is Kunokata. And the last one is Kunokata. Here we have a sokugyaku kick. These same sanshin forms can be applied to a punching attack, which is then referred to as go-gyo. Again, the first form, chi no kata. Now sui no kata. Ka no kata. Fu no kata. And last, Kunokata. Once the skill of the weight transfer through the body is learned, the student moves on to Kihon Happo, or 8 foundation techniques. Kihon Happo starts off with 3 forms, called Kihon Sampo, which teach how to receive a punch, attack, and then to counter. The first is Ichimonji no Kihon. Hicho no Kihon. Now, Jumonji no Kion. There are also a wide range of grappling techniques in the Bujinkan. The foundation for our grappling skills is found in the 5 Goho Torite Kihon from Kihon Happo. These forms also teach us how to receive and escape the joint locks through akimi, or rolling skills. Today we will demonstrate these grappling forms against a punch attack. The first is Omote Gyako. The akimi is key to maintaining the ability to keep training, especially on a nice soft floor like this one. Next is Omote Gyako from a collar grab. And now, Ura Gyako. And Moshidori. And finally, Musodori. The movements from the Kihon create the foundation which we learn each of the 9 schools of the Bujinkan. This year we would like to demonstrate some of the forms and strategies of combat from Kukishinru Happo Kinjitsu. Kukishinru is a very old martial arts system dating back to the 1100s in Japan. We will start today with some of the unarmed forms found in Kukishin Daken Taijutsu. The first is Yume Otoshi. So Daken Taijutsu originates from hand-to-hand combat when the combatants' weapons have been lost or broken, stolen, sold, whatever. The next is Suyoko. Let's see that again. And when we watch this, notice how the defender stretches out the attacker's strike, kind of disbalancing it, creating an opening. The next is Kubiwa. What makes Daken Taijutsu effective is the ability for the defender to draw the attacker into a trap using his angling, his distance, his timing. The attacker tends to fall into these strikes. The last one is Iwakudaki. The next weapon is the Roku Chocobo. Never mind about that. Let's try this again. So the next thing we're going to look at is some Yorori. The previous forms we saw were derived from successful techniques that survived actual combat in feudal Japan. Obviously, the ones that didn't survive didn't really pass their stuff on. The two yoroi you see here are representative of what was on the battlefield during the latter half of the 16th century. This became known as the Sengoku Jidai, or the Age of Battles. During these decades of near constant warfare, where various daimyo were fighting each other for dominance, the development of armor took a significant turn towards lightness, mobility, as well as rapidity of being able to get stuff made, and cheap. Cheap is a good thing when you're trying to get a lot of folks onto the battlefield. The most important thing that changed armor design was the introduction through trade with the Portuguese of matchlock guns. These were known as tepo, and they changed how armor was made. You can see with each of these things, there's these overlapping heavy plates, and that was to stop tepo shot. They still were relatively light compared to a lot of the European contemporaries. Those big heavy metal breastplates, this still was a little bit more mobile. It looks like this covers everything, but it doesn't. There's a lot of weaknesses inside this. You can lift up the parts here of the mempo. This is the shikoro. These are the shikoro of the kabuto here. And this is the mempo, the collar here. If I lift this stuff up, you can see that the neck, the carotid artery, everything is very open in this section. Sometimes there'd be another piece called the nodowa, which is just another heavy version of this guy sticking out. But if I move his head, I have a nice opening right there. Then if we look towards the arms, it's nicely covered by this heavy sode. These are going to be smaller than the older versions because the older versions were looking mostly for arrows. This one, again, it's not as a big deal because you're going to be shot as opposed to shot with an arrow. So the armor has nice plates on the outside, but if he lifts his arm for us, there's not a whole lot in here. This is entirely open. So you have chances to possibly get into the lungs. You go hard enough, you can possibly get into the heart. But then this whole section is also entirely open. So the brachial artery is an option inside there too. Besides, it just hurts when you do stuff. Yeah, see? The other parts down here, nice and covered in front, not so covered. This, moving these guys out of the way, well, you can see where I'm going with that. So if Greg turns around for us, nicely armored again, nothing on the back of the legs, and again. So there's a lot of spaces you can get into. There's the femoral artery once you move some of the stuff out of the way. So it looks like he's heavily covered. There's also these incredibly dangerous and most likely fatal openings that we can utilize if we need to. So let's see some, oh wait, hang on, let me mention these guys. So now we've got two weapons. We have a Nagamaki, which is effectively a sword attached to a 3 or 4 foot staff. And on the other side, we have a tachi. Now, we're going to use some soft ones today because we want to protect the armor. It's expensive. We'd like to beat it up, but we don't want to destroy it. But let's take a look at some techniques, some motions here. So the weight of the armor is also another hindrance. Once you get the person passed over a point of no return, he's going down, and now we can exploit those openings again. It's even difficult to get up front as Greg is demonstrating for us. More opening exploitation. I think we have the perfect theme music for this right now too. Ooh, there you go. take the legs out, the upper body is way more heavy, so once you tip him over, he's effectively a turtle on his back. Since Japan is a hot and humid country for a significant part of the year, folding fans called sensu are universally used. A weaponized version called a tessen was developed for fighting. The tessen had thin iron bars on the outside. It could have had sharpened iron spikes. The methods for opening and holding the common sensu were incorporated in the combat methods for the tessen. Many of the striking and grappling skills were the same as found in the Kihon Happo. Those strong metal plates inside the tessen could be used for wrist locks, different joint pressure techniques. And it also can be used as a mask to disguise the fact that a punch is coming immediately after it. And of course you can hit with it. This is where those spiky tips would come in very useful. And in addition to having a piece of metal flying towards your face, the sound it makes is a little bit startling, so that would have a bit of a Mitsubishi aspect to it, where it's distracting the mind. The hambo is the first weapon that a beginning student learns from Kukishinru. It's a 3-foot wooden stick resembling a walking cane. Either end can be used to strike or to apply many of the joint locks from the Kihon Happo. The first technique we're going to see is udegarami. The hambo guides the punch away, strikes the attacker's ribs, increases enough space and time to lock up the attacker's arm for a throw. Now let's look at this again. This time, Aaron's going to grab that stick, and he's going to get a surprise. This type of hidden weapon is called a Shekomezue. You never quite know This one is scary. And notice how we can use this person here as a way to actually draw that weapon. Use his own body to lock up that other end of the stick, if he's not polite enough to grab it for us at least. Next is Koshe Ori. There again, we can lock up the opponent and draw that blade to have a nice finisher. Next is Ganseke. And with a bit of luck, we'll watch Aaron go off the edge of the stage now. This is Onikudaki. Now, the way Aaron is locked up and that blade is drawn, it's invisible to him, which seems rude, but we'll do that anyhow. Now, the next weapon is the Roku Chocobo. It's a 6-foot staff, usually made from a hardwood. It became popular in the Edo period when carrying polearms was banned. There are 9 basic kamae or stances from which the bow is held. First is Hida Ichimanji, then Hidari Ichimanji, then Hidari Segan, Chudan, Jodan, Hekito, Ihin, which is the kamae between kamae. It's living, it's alive, it's always moving. And then finally, Tenchi. So maintaining the maximum distance when striking is the most important idea to understanding the use of the Roku Chocobo. You've got 6 feet of distance, you might as well use all of it. Monuchigata here is an exercise we use to develop that striking ability. As you can see, the bow is a two-sided striking weapon, thus it can be spun like a windmill to confuse the opponent or deflect an oncoming attack. This is called furigata. First formal kata that we're going to see is called Goho. So by striking at different elevations of targets, Brendan is going to react to the wrong one, leaving the actual target exposed, and he's going to go down. So let's look at that again. And this time, let's watch how Brendan, the defender, blocks every single strike. He has to put his entire body behind this. That staff is heavy. He can't just hope that it's going to stop it. Next kata is Ura Goho. Again, we're going to try to fake out the opponent to confuse him, to get him to react to the wrong attack, confuse him, and then we take advantage of that opportunity that is provided. Next is Sashiai. Sashiai. This time Victor's going to create some pressure. It's going to be very confusing, and once that pressure is relieved, a very obvious, painful opening is exposed, and Victor will absolutely take advantage of it. Let's see that again. Final is Funabari. Notice how the other side, the Roku Chocobo, lifts that sword up out of the way, creating, sometimes through force, a new opening for him to exploit. Final demonstration is Bikinjutsu. This is the art of the sword. Bikinjutsu uses 14 basic kamae or stances to stay protected using the sword. The first is Daijodan Seigan, then Jodan Seigan, then Seigan, then Chudan Seigan. Next is Geidan Seigan. Now this is Tenshi, Fudo, Hiryu, Tosui, Kasumi Gakure, Muso, Uranami, Robokuji. Finally, the cool one, Dato. Yeah. From the basic kamae, we move on to basic sword cuts. The first is Shomengiri. This is a straight down cut, roughly targeting the crown of the head. The next is Quesadilla. This is a diagonal cut, both sides. Targets the neck, possibly the shoulders. Now we have Dogiri. This is going towards the abdomen. And now Gyaku Quesadilla. This is a rising cut, targeting the legs, lower parts of the abdomen, the knees, which I guess are technically part of the legs still. It's important for these skills to become second nature, therefore we have developed some training drills to help the student. We call this the kamae square, because it's mostly square, and at some point it becomes square. Perfect. So the first time through, the kamae that we just saw are called out randomly, and the person in the middle must react to them, shift between them. So it's not enough to know the kamae themselves, you must understand how to shift in between any one to any other. Then on the next time through, there's going to be a cut, which they're going to have to defend, in addition to knowing which of the kamae they need to shift to. Now the last time through, there's a cut, a block, and a counter.
And goes. Not playing. Then go. Okay. I'm gonna teach.
Now the first form we're going to see is Kurisage.
Hi.
Both sides. Yeah, so he's going to react to that cut. He's going to step out of the way, and it's going to open space on the neck for the attacker. This is called Subazuriai. Neither opponent really has an advantage yet until one steps out of the way. Subazuriai is the clashing of the swords together and locking up at the suba, which is the hand guard. Here's another variation. And another.
Hey guys, you know
last one is Shihogiri.
I saw that kind of in the movie.
This one is going to look for attacks of opportunity.
About a bow that can talk.
So each one's a little different. The opening's roughly the same, but depending on how the other person moves. There you have it. So thank you very much. If you have any interest in looking at some of these armors or other armors, I think we have some, or some of the weapons you've seen on stage, please visit us in the exhibitions booths on the west side of the Visitor Center. Thank you very much.
You need to wash your hair now. No, guys, my dad had